question is, what is there risk in practicing yoga or dangers in practicing yoga? Hatha Yoga Pradipika, an old text on yoga, says that yoga is for everyone, young and old, firm and infirm. So that implies that anyone in any condition can practice yoga. The concern of, is it dangerous, that comes from a fear complex. Anything is really dangerous if you look at it. Cutting a tomato can be dangerous, and yoga can be also. But we have to take responsibility for our practice and our actions. And so yoga done properly is safe. And when I say properly, how I usually explain to students, or especially new students that ask about what is yoga and how is it different than other kind of exercises. I mean, yoga is more than exercise, but in that aspect of yoga is different in that it takes conscious attention, conscious effort, and conscious attention and awareness in our practice and what we're doing. And that way, if we work consciously, we avoid injuries and problems. People bring all kinds of problems to yoga. It might be hips, it could be shoulder problems, could be arthritic conditions, could be kyphosis, excessive curvature of the upper back, or scoliosis, curvature of the spine, or a host of many kind of problems. Everybody has imbalances, and part of the beauty of the practice of yoga when it's done consciously is that we first become aware of those imbalances or disparities in the body, and then once you become aware of those, you can go about alleviating those imbalances and bringing evenness, and therefore it helps whatever problem you might have. Oftentimes when people first start yoga, I've had people say after a few classes, they'll come and say, oh, I have all these aches and pains I didn't have before. And I think really they're there, they were so tight or unaware that when they start observing themselves, they become aware of these problems. And so that's the first step, to find out what the problem is before you can get rid of it. When people first come, they may have all different kind of ideas of what yoga is. And depending on the type of class it is and so forth, they have different experiences. They may be overwhelmed by physical sensations, or depending on how the class is taught, it could be a lot of information to take in, or become aware of how little they really know about themselves, emotionally or physically. But if they've had a good class, and if it's a balanced class, afterwards they'll feel good. They may have worked hard, but at the end of class they feel relaxed and quiet and not really fatigued. And that feeling may last for a while. Or there may be a physical problem, and that gets some relief. And yet, beyond that, something else happened. So that even when that problem disappears or dissipates, there's an effect, mental, you could call it spiritual effect, that they say to themselves, let me do some more of that. I stayed quiet, relaxed for 2 days. I felt good for 2 days, refreshed. Now I'm getting fatigued again. Let me come and try yoga again. So that's the effect of the asanas, besides just the physical level. I mean, asana is really about purifying our consciousness and understanding the mind, intelligence, and ego. One of the hallmarks of Iyengar Yoga, and I can't really speak about other types of yoga because I don't practice those, but I do practice Iyengar Yoga. One of the hallmarks of Iyengar Yoga, and part of the genius of BKS Iyengar, is his innovative use of props. So people that do have problems, injuries or ailments, the props can be very helpful in creating confidence in the student to practice properly, and also to give firmness and stability so the proper actions come. And thereby they can alleviate the problems or at least learn to bear the problems if it can't be cured. Take hip replacements, for example. Those are quite common in the US and probably worldwide now. And in our practice of yoga, when we do the standing poses, many people have what I'll call a fear complex. And we all have, nobody wants to get hurt, of course. And if you're doing a standing pose, say triangle pose or Utthita Parshva Konasana, extended lateral pose, and you go to the side, almost everyone, at least in the beginning, as they go down, their hips go back and their chest and head go forward. That's because nobody wants to fall over backwards and get hurt. But when they do come forward, the head of the femur goes out of the socket, and that creates irritation there. So people with hip problems or hip replacements, that's injurious or weakening to the socket or to any of us. So we have to learn to bring the root of the thigh or the femoral head deep into the socket and learn to stay back toward the back body and keep the chest lifted, if that makes sense. And so, but if you have a problem and you have fear, then that's a problem in itself. And so that's why props are given. It could be countertop in your kitchen. It could be a chair. If you're a yoga studio, at a studio, you can use ropes or a trestler and to give you support so that you don't have to worry about falling and can focus on the proper action to bring, in this case, the femur deep into the socket so it has a beneficial effect, healing and stabilizing effect in the hips. So that people with replacements can get freedom of movement, or you can help perhaps avoid such problems. First, makes the student aware of himself, him or herself, their feet, their hands, their arms, their legs, their physical body, the anatomical body. And then beyond that, if the teacher is seasoned and experienced and well-trained, the teacher brings other aspects of the physicalness of the postures into the student's awareness. Maybe the organic body, maybe the breath then, and then the teacher begins little by little, after the student becomes aware of these other aspects, connects the breath and the mind, because the breath connects the mind and the body. They're intimately connected, and ultimately when the mind and body get connected, that brings the student deeper to the self. And so it's a stage, it can't be done all at once and explained all at once, but has to be learned step by step. And things happen whether or not the student is aware of it or not. And that's why part of the philosophy of Iyengar's and some of the other systems of yoga are just practice. Even if it's not coming well, if you're having difficulties, you have to see, is your body going to dominate or your mind going to dominate? And ultimately you want to bring balance. And then things change. You feel some physical improvement perhaps, a stability, balance, physical balance, but that also brings a mental balance. Guruji says injuries are blessings in disguise. And he's hurt himself, had injuries of course, and he says, now I welcome them. I don't get upset, I just take them with a sense of humor and continue my practice until they're gone. When you get an injury and you have to figure out how do I fix myself, and in that injury and learning how to fix yourself, there comes a humility that you're not invincible, and that brings a compassion for others that have problems. Anything worthwhile takes effort and discipline. There's no learning otherwise. And ultimately in yoga, as you practice and continue to practice and refine, that effort becomes effortless. That's how actually Patanjali defines asana, or part of the aspect of asana, that the effort to do the pose becomes effortless and the divine being within is reached. And as far as danger goes, yes, ultimately, if you are a couch potato, if that's the term is often used in the US of sitting on the couch and watching television and watching movies and so forth, ultimately, yes, that is more dangerous, I think, than working in your yoga practice or some other kind of discipline.